Welcome to the second of our semifinal matches. We're here at the New Jersey Invitational, sponsored by Ultimate Guard. Liam Lonergan with Elves. He's the number 4 seed, undefeated in the tournament with the deck. He qualified in a single slot qualifier for this tournament with Elves. He's got his weapon of choice, but his opponent is going to be a tough one. Michael Majors with Obzon.
Lonergan definitely played this Elves deck plenty of times, so Major's specific flavor of Obzon, not a terribly common deck, and indeed the additions of Grimflayer, it's a relatively new deck on the scene, though a lot of the elements have been played significantly before. Turn
1 for Lonergan is going to be an Elvish Mystic. Now, importantly, he's on a mulligan to 5, which is, I would think, a dangerous place to be when you're a creature deck up against Obzon.
Yeah, against Obzon, the goal is to try to keep up on cards. In game 1, Majors isn't going to have any sweeper, though Lingering Souls does work against a lot of 1/1s.
Horizon Canopy plays a Llanowar Elf. Now, that last land you see in play there, not actually a basic forest. It looks like he's a copy of Pendelhaven from Lonergan. He'll play 2 Llanowar Elves and then attack with the Elvish Mystic to put Majors to 19.
And Pendelhaven is a card that will help him slog through Lingering Souls, even if he's unable to produce a Lord. Majors is going to have to deal with all these Elves individually or get a lot of bodies on the ground as Tarmogoyfs his Siege Rhinos.
No play yet for Majors. He's going to fall behind early. For Lonergan, going to play a 3rd land as a copy of Nykthos. Shrine to Nyx, it's a 1-of in his deck.
And Lonergan's holding looks to be 2 basic forests.
It's going to be tough. He swings with all his creatures, but when he goes to Pendelhaven, one of them, Majors is at the ready with an Abrupt Decay. So he stays at a healthy 17 as we go to Majors' 3rd turn.
Lonergan has the mana to cast Collected Company from here, but he needs to top deck that. If he can start rolling with Collected Companies off the top, we can have ourselves a game here. Though Majors has at least 1 copy of Lingering Souls, he can start getting on the table in a very significant way.
Majors, Liliana of the Veil. Going to go ahead and plus both players discard. Now something here, and this is a minor part, but Lonergan, by pumping the Mystic, he gave Majors a chance to untap and Maelstrom Pulse there.
Yeah, a small misstep there, ended up not being punished for it. Interesting to see Majors go for the plus on Liliana over the -2. This way, an attack for 3 on the Liliana allows it to survive through this turn, potentially get another card out of Lonergan's hand.
It's a huge show of strength for Majors to make that kind of play.
Right.
Lonergan will play the last card in his hand. It's a Nettle Sentinel. So now if Majors wants to plus his Liliana, he's going to be the only person discarding.
Yep, if Lonergan's holdings were Collected Company spell, he'd get something with the Liliana. The way things played out, Lonergan is already hell-bent, which, to be fair, is not a bad spot for Majors.
Yeah, you see Michael, 1 copy of Lingering Souls in the graveyard, a 2nd copy in his hand. He's still at 17, as Lonergan had to spend that whole turn attacking Liliana of the Veil.
Yeah, and Lonergan's spells so far have been 1-mana 1/1s. Now he has a 2/2 joining the fold.
And just such confidence from Michael Majors. You see he's going to go use a Marsh Flats to find Temple Garden, deals 3 to himself just to get his mana right.
Marsh Flats can't find basic forest. To this point, his only green mana was Twilight Mire, so this will allow him to 2-spell with green spells at different phases of a turn. And it's still at 14 life after that shock. I think it makes sense to just go for the mana.
So something like Scavenging Ooze, hold up Abrupt Decay.
Right, or even just hold up the activations, bluff for Abrupt Decay in the meantime.
You see at least 1 Ooze, Overgrown Tomb, Basic Forest, and Lingering Souls all in Michael's hand. And he'll plus Liliana and discard away the Overgrown Tomb.
Seldom needs land number 5. This gets him that Liliana Edict next turn should he want it.
Scavenging Ooze and Lingering Souls for Majors. He'll tap out. 2 Spirits, passes back to Lonergan. And with Majors at 14, Lonergan will need to find a new way to get damage across. Those 2 1/1s off Lingering Souls and the Scavenging Ooze mean that Majors has Lonergan matched across the board. 1/1s for 1/1s, 2/2 for 2/2.
An Elvish Archdruid would be a solid pickup here. It would allow him to fairly safely attack on this turn.
Everything's attacking. We'll see just where they go. Keep in mind, there's a Pendelhaven up for Liam Lonergan.
For Majors, I like splitting the souls on the 2 Llanowar Elves.
Everything goes to Liliana. It's a peculiar block from Michael Majors. Look, he goes for a double block on the elf and a spirit on the other elf.
He's lining up Scavenging Ooze plus Spirit so he can eat it even in the face of a Pendelhaven, demonstrating that maybe the Scavenging Ooze not essential to his game plan.
I like this a lot. Majors is going to try to trade everything. Lonergan can save at most one creature.
Yeah, this block is very solid as well. And he'll be able to trade with 2 creatures, untap, use that Liliana to get the last creature, or one of Lonergan's 2 creatures, depending on what's in his hand.
Lonergan saves a Llanowar Elf, but that's going to be it. Plays a land and passes.
And now Major's in a commanding lead.
Yeah, he still has another Lingering Souls in his hand, which he could use both halves of. He has the Liliana in play. He has a Shambling Vent in play. He is nowhere near out of resources yet.
I believe a backup Scavenging Ooze in the hand. I'm not entirely sure on that, but that would make sense why he would trade off the first one.
That was my thought exactly. I was surprised to see him trade Scavenging Ooze just because of how many creatures were in the graveyard here. It was going to pull out of range. If he has another, that's pretty free.
Yeah, and also on that turn, it helped him to make that trade and use the Liliana to get another creature.
So keep in mind, there are no removal spells in the elf deck. You see Major is willing to trade his Liliana with that last Llanowar elf. So Majors will play repeats last turn, Ooze and Lingering Souls. But without removal spells, Lonergan's going to just have to overpower this from this position.
He's going to need to start top decking Collected Company, and it has to have good hits. If he keeps peeling Elvish Mystics, Llanowar Elves, he's just going to get run over.
Right now, life totals are 13 for Majors, 19 for Lonergan. Healthy on both sides. You see another Twilight Mire, it looks like, for Michael Majors. Yeah, plays 2, and he'll be swinging the team.
And in this matchup, there's a very significant disparity in individual card quality between the 2 decks. Major's average card worth a lot more than the average elf card. Once he pulls ahead on board like this, it's very hard for Lonergan to claw back his way into the game.
And that's exactly what he'll do. It's an attack from Majors. Lonergan has no blocks. Majors oozes away 4 creatures, gains 4, goes to 17, hits Lonergan down to 11, and flashes back Lingering Souls. There's 10 power on the battlefield for Majors already. We look to be in chump block mode next turn.
Right, and I believe the pickup is Court of Calling for Lonergan, but even with the pick of anything in the deck, there's not much he can do. He's just a bunch of green creatures. He could find a Dwinnen's Elite to make a couple of bodies.
Yeah, Court for 2 will be the play. If it was earlier in the game, Liam Lonergan does have 1 copy of Scavenging Ooze in the main deck. And you notice that Michael was winning this game with Lingering Souls and Scavenging Ooze of his own. I would think if this had happened a turn or 2 earlier, Liam could have made a play.
Yeah, you could start fighting in the graveyard, remove the Lingering Souls in the graveyard, fight over the Scavenging Ooze as it tries to exile a creature, to exile it in response with your own. Though right now, this Elvish Visionary peeling into Forest, that's going to be far from a good enough in this game.
Yeah, he has to get Elvish Visionary, and now for Michael Majors. Looks like we're going to get a big attack. Here's Shambling Vent. Everything attacks. The Elvish Visionary has to block Ooze, so 6 damage comes in. Lonergan down to 5, Majors up to 19, and we should be seeing game 2 shortly here. So Michael Majors takes game 1. He was on the draw, and this was a pre-board game. How big is this?
This is a big win for Majors. He really is looking to split these first 2 games. We saw Lonergan take a mulligan to 5. Huge sigh of relief from Majors. 1 more pre-board game. When we get to the sideboard, he gets to get a lot better in terms of how he's going to be able to interact with the elf deck. More removal spells, and more importantly, actual sweepers.
So players are going to shuffle up for game 2. Lonergan back on the play. Now we have to remember he was on a mulligan to 5. With 7 cards, it will be harder for Majors to kill spell his way out of this sort of situation.
And Lonergan didn't find his big payoff cards. No Collected Companies in that game. The Court of Calling he found was way too late to be significant.
Right, there were no Archdruids, no Azuris, no Court of Callings. Liam was playing, what, tribal 1/1s? Didn't feel like enough.
Right, 1-mana 1/1s just aren't going to cut it against Abzan.
We'll see if Liam Lonergan can put something together in Game 2. Now, we are here in the semifinals of the Invitational. So keep in mind, the players are playing for so very much this weekend. First of all, they're playing for $10,000. On top of that, they're playing for a spot in the Players' Championship at the end of the year. Now, this is the conclusion of Season 2, and we had been talking all weekend about our Season 2 points race. Up at the top of the points race, we can now say that 1, 2, and 3 are Tom Ross, Kevin Jones, and Andrew Jessup. Tom Ross is the Season 2 points leader in earning a spot to the Players' Championship, and he will be joined by the at-large finishers of Kevin Jones and Andrew Jessup. So that brings the number of players qualified for the tournament in Roanoke this December up to 8, and we'll see just who they are. You see in Season 1, Max McVitie, your Invitational champion, Jeff Hoagland, your points winner, and the at-large spots of Andrew Tenjum and Jerry Thompson, now joined by Ross, Jones, Jessup, and of course, their teammate, defending champion Jim Davis.
3 of 4 members of Team Metagame Gurus already qualified for the Players' Championship.
And we'll see one more face added to this before the end of the weekend. It's going to be Liam Lonergan, Michael Majors, or Jadine Klimperens. Players are now getting ready for the second game.
The winner of this game gets to meet Jadine Klimperens in the final for that PC slot.
Michael's going to go ahead and go back to the drawing board on his hand there. For Michael Majors, the player from the Georgia area, this is his first Invitational top 8, but by no means his first major achievement. We've talked about so much that he's accomplished in the last 2 years. Michael Majors, for the longest time in his early 20s, was, I would say, the gold pro that no one had ever heard about. He was playing 2 to 3 pro tours a year while still basically remaining off the radar, but that really ended a year ago with his Grand Prix victory. He took that with blue-red tutelage and really didn't look back from there. Moved to Roanoke, started testing with the Star City Games crew. He now has made it all the way from off the Pro Tour to being one of the platinum pros of the game, one of the top players, and now looks to add to that with his Invitational finish this weekend.
And stand-up, they have what they call a comedian's comedian, where all the comics know this person is very funny, but maybe it's not very well known. Majors was in many respects a pro's pro for a long time, but now a household name.
Just take a word off that, moves to just being a pro.
Right.
6 cards for Majors. Not happy with it, but he might be keeping. You see a lackadaisical flip there, but yeah, he'll scry. So we'll see what can Lonergan put together. It's going to start on Heritage Druid. Land for Majors. Now, one of the downsides to Obzon, as opposed to, say, its counterpart in Jund, is that Obzon doesn't get to play 1-mana removal nearly as well.
Right. You're looking at Path to Exile instead of Lightning Bolt.
On turn 1, I'm not really feeling it.
And in particular in this matchup, if Lonergan's getting to 4 mana naturally, whatever, but if he's a little light on mana, you Path to Exile and he can Collected Company a turn early, that's a big problem.
Lonergan will force it. He plays Dwinnen's Elite. Now, if Lonergan had another elf in play, Dwinnen's Elite says that he would get a 1/1 token as well. So he would have then gotten the Elite, a token, and could have tapped all 3 for 3 mana. Majors decides that is just too much, so he actually paths the turn 1 play of Heritage Druid from Lonergan.
And in particular in these pre-sideboarded games when Majors does not have access to Damnation, he really has to get in on that early action.
So post-board, maybe he can let Liam build a board and then sweep it all away.
Right, maybe Lonergan uses that 3 mana, casts most of his hand, and then Majors is able to clean it up with just 1 card.
For Michael Majors, it's a copy of Tarmogoyf and a pass. You see some of that awkwardness in Michael Majors' main deck. His remaining hand is 2 lands, a Maelstrom Pulse, and then a copy of Nile Spellbomb.
Not ideal here.
No, it actually shrinks his Tarmogoyf if he wants to draw a card with it. I guess it replaces it.
Right, not currently. It actually grows his Tarmogoyf because Lonergan does not yet have a graveyard because the path has
was exiled.
Right. Right. Though 2 mana is a lot to pay for +1/+1.
Azuri, Renegade Leader from Lonergan. He will pass. This card, one of the biggest damage sources of the Elves deck. If he can get this going with an Archdruid or a Heritage Druid, something that makes a lot of mana, there's no telling how much damage Lonergan's deck can put out.
Majors does have a Maelstrom Pulse in his hand, and though Lonergan has a green mana up, Azuri can only regenerate other elves. So he has an in to deal with the Azuri.
So basically the Pulse will have to hit the Azuri at some point, but Majors doesn't necessarily have to do it this turn.
Right. For now, he has a little bit of time if he wants to start casting different spells. The Tarmogoyf is going to do a good job at holding the fort here, though if Lonergan untaps with 5 mana, suddenly Majors doesn't really have a good block.
Right, yeah, the Azuri will make all of Lonergan's creatures scale much harder than something like Tarmogoyf.
Amusingly, currently Lonergan controls 2 Cavern of Souls. If his 5th land is Cavern of Souls, he can't actually activate Azuri because it's green, green.
Pulse on Azuri. In response, Lonergan will put a Regeneration Shield on the Dwinnen's Elite. That falls off as he takes his 4th turn here.
That Regen Shield, it's just good form, though it was certainly not going to matter.
No swing from Michael Majors. You see Tarmogoyf after that removal spell, 4 power. And it looks like Lonergan plays no land, no spells, passes back to Majors. I would normally be concerned, but I've been watching enough Standard to know that that is a fine play by Lonergan.
You've seen a Collected Company cast before?
I think so, yeah. It's once or twice. Majors will go use that Nile Spellbomb. He draws a land, now adds Scavenging Ooze to his Tarmogoyf, but Majors is still all about defense here, not wanting to attack.
And Lonergan spinning the wheel, can he get some good hits off of the company?
It looks like it. We see Azuri, Eternal Witness, and Dwinnen's Elite. All are options for Lonergan. This is a pretty good Collected Company.
And there's only one Eternal Witness in the main deck. Eternal Witness getting back Collected Company is about the best value engine that this deck has access to.
Now, one thing I do want to note, Ryan, because I've made this mistake looking at the art of Eternal Witness before. The text box on the card, what's its creature type?
It may or may not be an elf. Turns out it's a human.
So good in the deck as it's a good 3-drop, but keep in mind it's not going to work with the other things here.
And that justifies why you would play 1 copy, not 4 copies.
As an elf, you might see a couple more of it.
As an elf, it's in contention for the best card in the deck.
Both Caverns from Lonergan. For Elvish Visionary. Now keep in mind that Collected Company is back in his hand. Lonergan picked it up while Majors was tapped out so that Scavenging Ooze couldn't get in the way.
Also happened to already have backup Collected Company.
We have 2 companies in the hand?
Yes, sir.
Oh, wow. 5 creatures now. Lonergan making a Visionary and a Nettle Sentinel there.
And Majors has to be able to deal with Azuri. That thing is worth millions of damage.
He'll play Siege Rhino. Lonergan to 17, Majors to 19. And this is where Majors' game plan of just trade cards, it's falling apart right now.
Yeah, you can't 1-for-1 when your opponent starts 2-for-1ing you. In particular, he's just out of those 1-for-1 interactions. With Azuri on the table, it's going to be fairly easy for Lonergan to start punching through everything Majors is doing. Majors not even presenting a lethal crackback.
See 4 cards still in the hand of Lonergan. 2 copies of Collected Company. Yeah, just pass the turn.
Kind of the one thing that Lonergan is missing is a copy of Nykthos to really get his mana going. He only plays 1 in the deck.
Yes, he plays 1. I suppose if with these companies, he maybe can find Archdruid instead to get all that mana.
Right, that's another great way to generate a ton of mana, activate Azuri multiple times.
Yeah, when he decides to swing, he might just one-shot Michael Majors.
Right.
Shambling Vent from Majors, and now a Collected Company from Lonergan. He's being sure to leave up a green mana when he makes this play. And it looks like he may not get options on this one. He has a Scavenging Ooze and a Dwinnen's Elite. I guess Llanowar Elves, so 3 choices.
This one, less of a hit than the first one, but it didn't need to be as good. This is just fine with this board.
Yeah, he'll take the pair of 2-drops, get his free elf token. And then we'll use the Scavenging Ooze to start going after Majors' graveyard. That's going to shrink down Tarmogoyf as he goes to work.
Yep, not even targeting a creature, just gets that Maelstrom Pulse out of Major's graveyard.
Yeah, so we have Artifact, Instant Land. Tarmogoyf down to a 3/4. Keep in mind, we have that Tarmogoyf die currently at 4/5. Now, it is the responsibility of the players to have that one correctly, which you see they will update.
Lonergan doing Majors a favor there.
Yeah, the judge will only update it once damage is dealt. So say if Majors attacks and then says take 4, then the judge will say, actually it's 3.
Yep. You cannot deal the wrong amount of damage.
That said, so that as we don't coach the players, we don't move it until then.
Right.
Cavern of Souls makes Nettle Sentinel for Liam, bringing his creature count up to 9. Majors exiling Liam's Collected Company. With the Eternal Witness already in play.
And Majors saw the deck list.
Yeah.
He knows that there's no second Eternal Witness, though the thing is, mid-game, they're not allowed to reference it.
So you may just not recall if there was a second, and this is safe enough.
Right.
Another Tarmogoyf from Majors. Those are still 3/4s for the time being. And Liam will collect some more company. 9 creatures are just not enough. He's going to go back to the deck.
And it looks like we got a big find here.
Do we get the Archdruid?
We got it.
Archdruid and Elvish Visionary, but the Archdruid was what Liam Lonergan was looking for. With 11 creatures in play, 10 of them are elves. The Archdruid itself taps for 10. That is 2 Azuri activations.
Yep. With green mana left in the tank for some regeneration shields.
A free play here from Lonergan. Elvish Mystic. Dwinnen's Elite, another elf. Keep in mind, because these are adding to the mana of Archdruid, it's not really costing him to do this.
Right. Similar to the old standard Nixthos mana.
Right. And with that said, here comes an attack of just about everything. We mentioned that when Liam wins, it might be a one-shot. He's going to use that second ability on Azuri twice. And Major's is going to try to block his way through it with Shambling Vent.
He's going to force him to do it.
Yeah, let's see if it works. Azuri, there's enough mana right now to activate Azuri 3 times from Liam Lonergan. You see the 2 untapped lands, and he has 13 elves in play. His creatures can get +9/+9 and trample. The elves will at the very least.
2 elves lethal on their own. Majors at 19.
Yeah, and 2 elves are unblocked. You see Visionary, Elite, and the token. So,
and you know, trample on the other elves anyway.
Oh yeah, we'll add in trample. I don't think the 2 life gain from Shambling Vent is enough to survive through this.
It's gonna be a touch shy here.
Liam has only activated twice at the moment, but even then, you see 7 off an unblocked creature, 7 off another one. Lonergan counting himself. 8 on the Dwinnen's Elite, that's 22, and Majors is only has 2 points of life gain. And Liam Lonergan evens it up as he splits the pre-board games with Michael Majors at 1 apiece.
And this is the danger of the elf deck. Once it starts getting ahead, the power that it's able to present just snowballs. It grows at an extremely fast rate.
So now we will move over to the sideboards. As we start game 3, players are allowed to access their sideboards. You mentioned before, for Michael Majors, he lost the game, but I imagine now that he's on the play to start game 3, this has got to still be a very comfortable position for him.
Yep, and winning one of the pre-sideboarded games, I imagine, was about his goal. He would love to have won both, but just taking one, things are getting a lot better post-sideboard.
Yeah, and as he won the first game, he will get to be on the play for game 3, and Liam will have to win twice on the draw to win this match.
Right. Play draw, not the most significant thing in this matchup, though Majors is able to get to 4 mana sooner to cast Damnation, which is likely to matter in some number of the games. And it's all about the impact of the sideboard cards here.
Majors, if you're wondering, it looks like he has a judge question away from table. Sometimes you need to know about a rules interaction. So we'll talk about their sideboards here for a second. 2 copies of Damnation. I know that's the biggest winner for Michael Majors. 2 copies of Kitchen Finks, 1 Engineered Explosives, 1 Gideon Ally of Zendikar, a Maelstrom Pulse, 2 Grafdigger's Cage, which actually could be good here. We'll get to that in a sec. 2 Fulminator Mage, 2 Stony Silence, a Collective Brutality, and a Pithing Needle.
Yeah, so the big hits, the 2 Damnations, the 1 Engineered Explosives. What the 2 Grafdigger's Cage enable him to do, Lonergan won't be able to put creatures into play from his library. It's going to turn off Collected Company and Court of Calling. It's a full 8 cards out of Lonergan's deck, and they're his best cards in this matchup. So Grafdigger's Cage actually does a significant amount of work here. The Maelstrom Pulse can clean up multiple elves. The Collective Brutality, kill an elf, potentially discard a card, look for the Court of Calling or the Collected Company if you don't have a cage in play. These cards all seem like significant upgrades for Majors.
Now, a lot of times you see players board in a card like Kitchen Finks against a creature deck. Elves is a very particular creature deck. Does it still work here?
So it's better than some of the cards in his main deck. It depends how many cards he's getting to that he wants to board out. His Grim Flayers are really non-starters here, so those are for sure coming out. It's really going to be a matter. The rest of this stuff, he's got a lot of removal spells, but he's got these 2 Nihil spell bombs that are also terrible. So those 5 cards that are coming out for sure. It's going to be all about whether or not there's room for the things.
All right. So remember, these players are playing for a lot this weekend. We already talked about how they're going to get an invite to the Players' Championship December in Roanoke. Another prize, though, and sometimes the most coveted prize of them all, is their likeness on a token. We've already had that happen once this year. This was our Season 1 Invitational Champion and Players' Championship qualified player, Max McVitie. With Mono White Humans, he was the winner of the Season 1 Invitational, defeating Craig Krempels in the finals. Now, that with Clue Token, which featured in his deck, is still available as a limited edition token, but its time is running out. This is given out to all open participants this in the season and classic participants. Now, that time is basically up, but you can still get it by placing an order of $5 or more from StarCityGames.com. You're going to want to do that one soon because we're going to be making a new token this weekend.
Yeah, we'll find out who wins. We're going to have a finals between JD and Clomperons and the winner of this match. And we're going to find out what kind of token they want to make, and so we can get that one out there in their likeness. This is the coolest prize for winning the Invitational for me. I would love to have one of these tokens. I know that Brad Nelson was planning on making his token the Monarch. Of course, Jadine dispatched him in a 3-1 victory in the semifinals. I'm not sure what kind of token these players are fishing for.
Majors will be on the play game 3. With Lonergan on the draw. Now, what was really impressive from Liam Lonergan in that last game was I expected him to be a fast combo deck. I didn't expect him to just bury Majors and cards like that.
Yeah, and that's the thing about the Elves deck. Unless your opponent is very heavy on creature interaction, you're able to just hang back. You know, Majors, a primary part of his deck is to play large creatures on the ground. Turns out that that's what Elves does in spades. So Lonergan's able to sit back, build a board as Majors does, and as long as he's able to start sticking Azuri, start sticking Elvish Archdruid, he's just pulling ahead on the table. Is able to use some patience because when it comes time to attack with Azuri, there's nothing that Majors can do that's remotely large enough to block all of that. There's no synergy-driven cards in Major's deck. He has Tarmogoyf. Tarmogoyf is large, but it's large within the realm of fairness and abstractly good cards. Doesn't have anything that can compete with a high synergy engine like the Elves deck.
Yeah, the card Collected Company was, Lonergan cast it, got it back with the Witness, cast it again, ended the game, he had a third one as well? That's more value than Obzon puts out.
And pre-sideboard, the only kind of value that Majors is producing on that level is Lingering Souls. Well, that's always good for exactly 4 1/1s. Collected Company can be good for a lot more than that. In particular, Collected Company for Eternal Witness. It's a lot better than Lingering Souls.
That's just gross. It's Collected Company with buyback 0. About to start here, game number 3. Majors back on the play. Now he has the Damnations in his deck. Now he has the Engineered Explosives, an extra Maelstrom Pulse. He has some real sweepers at the ready.
Yep. And Lonergan has to be mindful of that as he commits to the board. Zuri cannot save the elves from damnation.
And here we go. It is Michael Majors starting on Inquisition of Kozilek. He'll see what he's up against, and Lonergan, a risky keep, but we'll go through it. He has just one land, and it does not make green mana. It's Cavern of Souls, but look at the payoff. A copy of Llanowar Elves, a copy of Nettle Sentinel, a Dwinnen's Elite, a Path to Exile, and then here's the real winner, 2 copies of Collected Company.
Yep, some lands off the top. This hand has the potential to cast a Collected Company on turn 3. On the draw, he gets another crack at finding that land before he needs to play any spells.
Okay, so what I have to say here, you know, maybe it's not the right play, but I really like getting people. You know the card I want to take from Majors.
Yeah, you want to take the Llanowar Elves. Majors is likely to have some great cards at just dealing with the elves on the table. I'd be looking at probably the Dwinnen's Elite if I had a Collective Brutality or an Abrupt Decay in my hand.
Okay, so if you can kill the Llanowar Elf, you take something else. Yeah, he's going to take the Llanowar Elf. Right, Majors has a chance to score a free win here. If Liam just doesn't draw lands for 2 turns, the game's probably over.
And this hand, Liam's playing an 18-land deck. Only 17 draws to find that land.
Well, he drew a land that turn, but I got some bad news on it. It's another Cavern of Souls.
Okay, it's solid for casting elves. Still doesn't have green mana to cast Collected Company. No white mana for that Path to Exile.
Yeah, so Cavern, of course, set to Elf, plays Nettle Sentinel. Scavenging Ooze from Majors. We go back to Lonergan. He draws, looks like a Relic of Progenitus. We'll check on that in a second here. Yeah. Correction, it's a Scavenging Ooze there. So Liam Lonergan, though, will make his Dwinnen's Elite off double Cavern of Souls.
And at this point, Majors didn't take the Elite with the Inquisition, though if he just has a Damnation, he can clean up this board very easily.
Grafdigger's Cage from Majors. Now, you might be wondering what Liam Lonergan set his second Cavern to. Maybe Ooze for Scavenging Ooze. He's kept them both on Elf, though. He does play cards that are double green that are elves.
Right, he'll still be able to cast Azuri, still be able to cast Elvish Archdruid. Though, with that Grafdigger's Cage in play, can't cast those 2 copies of Collected Company in his hand.
Well, he can cast them. However, they're
Wouldn't
not
get too far.
Right. For Lonergan, he finds a true green source of green and white mana. It's Razorverge Thicket. So his hand now, Path to Exile, Scavenging Ooze, 2 thickets. He's going to, or 2 companies. He's going to path away the Ooze. In response, Majors exiles the Llanowar Elves, gains a life. Ooze is exiled. Majors gets a basic forest.
And Lonergan able to chip in for some damage, though Majors can have some very explosive plays on the following turn. Any of his 4-mana spells, Damnation, Siege Rhino, and he'll be significantly ahead in this game.
Yeah, I suppose Liam does have 5 power worth of creatures. That's one of the benefits when you're playing a creature-based combo deck is when they break up your combo, you can just start beating them up.
Right. He'll have to start casting green spells to untap Nettle Sentinel. It would be amusing if he had to cast Collected Company in the Grafdigger's Cage just to untap Nettle Sentinel.
Ooh, it's a 2-point burn spell? I'm into that. All right.
4 mana, 2 damage. Little Aliopile.
Now you can split that one up.
Or is that one just 1 and 1? There's a 1 and 3
There's
card.
a 1 and 3.
There's a 1. Is it a recent limited environment, right?
Oh yeah, that thing's bad. Explosive Apparatus. There we go. Major's down to 8. He will fetch on end step to get an overgrown tomb.
I went a little too deep on Aliopile.
We don't have to go as back as Fallen Empires. We can just go to Shadows over Innistrad. Maelstrom Pulse, the draw from Majors. You see he has that. We'll cast it on the Nettle Sentinel. Path to Exile appears to be in his hand as well.
Interesting choice on the Sentinel over the Dwinnen's Elite. They're both 2/2s. The Sentinel needs some help to untap.
I think we have another Cavern of Souls for Liam Lonergan.
Can make that Ooze uncounterable.
Swings for 3. Majors is going to path the Elite so that he only drops to 7. Yeah, if he sets the Cavern to Ooze, he can leave up green mana with which to activate this Scavenging Ooze.
Right.
And we're going to see that play. Cavern of Souls set to Ooze, plays Ooze off 2 caverns, passes. Now that Razorverge Thicket is up.
I've had some caverns from an elf player set to Oof against me for a Kitchen Finks. That's pretty brutal. The Ooze here is going to come advantage. He now has Majors on a 2-turn clock.
I suppose you can't just set it to Finks. That's not actually a creature type. Yeah, Lonergan will go ahead and exile a creature. That is a 3rd point of power for the Ooze. It's a 4th point of damage. Engineered Explosives drawn by Majors, but he didn't cast it this turn.
He's hoping to be able to get 2 permanents with it on the following turn. Right now, he's placing a 2-mana thing and a 0-mana thing. Definitely not using it for this elf token. But if something like a second 2-drop were to come down, he'd get a little more value out of it.
He paths away the Scavenging Ooze and goes to 6 from the token. Major's just buying time until he finds some sort of creature.
And he can't set explosives to 1, because he'll blow up his own Grafdigger's Cage and open up those 2 collected companies in Lonergan's hand.
His draw is Thoughtseize. It's not a threat. Majors is looking, can he find a Lingering Souls? He's going to play Engineered Explosives on 0 and pass. His hand is Thoughtseize and a 3rd Path to Exile.
In all my years, I've never seen a sadder Engineered Explosives.
It's not pretty, is it?
No.
It's gonna kill a token.
Sure is.
Sure is.
That's what it's for. Usually when it kills tokens, it kills 4, 10, 100 of them.
Elvish Archdruid from Lonergan will turn that 2-point swing into a 4-point swing. Major's likely to respond. There we go. Engineered Explosives takes care of the token. Path to Exile on the Archdruid. And once again, Majors just takes 1. He's down to 5.
Majors would love to find something that can just block the Llanowar Elves. Maybe a Lingering Souls would be about his best top deck from here.
Just anything, right? Siege Rhino, Scavenging Ooze, Tarmogoyf.
I'd be fine with the Shambling Vent.
Liliana of the Veil.
Yeah, that one's fine.
He's got to hit one of them, though. He has more or less exhausted his removal.
An Inquisition, a Kozilek off the top, just a bunch of dead discard spells.
Llanowar Elves hits Majors down to 4. Liam has been going at the pace of 1 damage a turn for 4 consecutive turns now.
And that's all he needs.
And now he'll double his clock. Elvish Mystic.
And the pickup Pithing Needle?
This is... it's just such a struggle. Majors draws Heritage Druid, or Liam draws Heritage Druid, hits Majors to 2. More 1/1s for 1. I said last game that tribal 1/1s for 1 was not going to be good enough. Okay, we stand corrected. It looks like it's going to win Liam Lonergan game 3.
Majors just draws complete blanks, as he has done over the course of the last 4 turns. 1/1s for 1 are going to do it.
And a huge upset here on the draw. Into a Grafdigger's Cage, post sideboard, Liam Lonergan takes a game, and now he is 1 game away from the finals. Maybe his 10th straight match win with Elves.
Major's gonna revisit his sideboard plan here. Maybe he's not in love with those discard spells anymore.
Ugh. All right, well, let's look back at the board plan. Yeah, Majors certainly has a lot of discard spells. Felt some pressure there of not finding a finisher. You look at his board, he does have a few more finishers. Maybe you see him go to them?
Yeah, maybe turn a discard spell into a Kitchen Finks if that was not already a concession that was made here. Kitchen Finks would have been just fine. It would have been great there even. Just get in the front of the 1/1s.
I mean, yeah, but he's already boarding in Grafdigger's Cages. Like, ugh, I don't want to do that plus Finks.
If you could replace any of his last 4 draw steps in that game with a 3-mana 3/2 with no text,
Again,
it would be significant upgrades.
Ugh. How about Gideon, Ally of Zendikar? There we go. That's a fine way to win the game.
That would have been an excellent draw.
All right, well, we looked at Michael Majors' board plan. Now we're going to look over at Liam Lonergan. He needs to win 1 more game. He's got 2 chances to do it. We see Aven Mindcensor, Burrington Forge Tender, Chameleon Colossus, Eidolon of Rhetoric, Elvish Champion, Essence Warden, Fracturing Gust, Kataki War's Wage, Kitchen Finks, Malira Silvak Outcast, Path to Exile, and Phyrexian Revoker.
We saw that Path to Exile has already been boarded in. He just wants to be able to keep Tarmogoyfs off of major side of the battlefield or Siege Rhino. Chameleon Colossus seems quite good here. It's immune to a lot of the removal from majors and can make a very fast clock. And then the Kitchen Finks, there's a strong argument for them. They get 1-for-1 by Path to Exile. They can get cleaned up because of the Grafdigger's Cage. Though in the face of no cage plus Damnation, they at least come back.
Yeah, I mean, most of the main deck here is where Lonergan will be looking. Yeah, Chameleon Colossus, we said, have to assume it's for this matchup?
It's better against Jund.
Right, they don't have Path to Exile and the two Lightning Bolts.
So it's just fine here.
Yeah, Michael can't path everything.
Exactly. Can't Abrupt Decay it, can't Maelstrom Pulse it.
See, my favorite part about that sideboard in this deck, you already are going to know what it is. So what's the creature type on Chameleon Colossus?
It is a Shapeshifter. That's the text box on the card. It also happens to be all creature types.
So it's on theme. It's an elf.
It is an elf. Much more of an elf than Eternal Witness.
If you pump it with Archdruid, it starts at 5. We get to 20. It's pretty great.
You double pump it, yeah, 5, 10, 20.
All right, players are going to get ready for their 4th game. We're going to hop on over, talk about the Star City Games t-shirts. We, of course, always have these on sale. The official shirt of StarCityGames.com and the SCG Tour. 50% cotton, 50% poly. They are made in the USA. It is the only way that you can look as good as Tom Ross. Go over at StarCityGames.com/apparel.
Though for you and myself, we could only hope to look as good as Tom Ross.
Hey, you gotta play to your outs.
It's a cool t-shirt anyway.
Michael Majors on the play, game number 4. He's going to start. He has that discard still in, and we'll see what he's up against. There's another company. He's got 3 lands, Nykthos and Pendelhaven among them. We have 2 Heritage Druids. And then that last one there, that's out of the sideboard. That's the one of Elvish Champion. Kind of the less good version of Elvish Archdruid, but we'll still take it.
Majors is likely to control some forests. Elvish Champion grants Forest Walk.
That can matter, yeah.
Throwback to Ella Damry from Tempest, another elf lord that gave elves Forest Walk, though it gave them Shroud, it didn't give them +1/+1.
And Elvish Champion is the one taken by Majors. But Liam, not to be set back, draws an even better lord for the turn. He draws an Azuri. He'll play a Heritage Druid.
And the pick of Elvish Champion makes a lot of sense. Redundant Heritage Druids are just 1/1s.
All right, and I have to just say, I love this from Michael Majors. He lost last game by not having enough threats. Boom, draw for the turn, Gideon.
There we go.
We're not losing that way again.
I'm not going to get overrun by 1/1s. We are off of that plan.
Tarmogoyf was the play from Majors. Creature Sorcery Land means it's already a 3/4.
And discard into Tarmogoyf is about the ideal start for these Jund, Abzan decks in Modern.
And for Lonergan, he did pick up a 3rd Heritage Druid, so he plays 2 more, plays Azuri, and passes.
Does Majors have Maelstrom Pulse or Engineered Explosives here?
We talked about how Majors has sweepers. Against a start like this, Majors gets even more. You mentioned Pulse. This certainly counts now.
He's not slamming it, which I have to imagine he would be if he had it. There is some consideration to just going for the Azuri, but I want to kill all of these Heritage Druids.
I see 3 things, and I just want to shoot them all. Now, Majors does have a Path to Exile, and maybe without a Pulse, that is likely to be his consolation prize.
Yeah, just get the Azuri off the table. Your Tarmogoyf can hold the ground against these 1/1s.
But that still represents a lot of damage from Lonergan, or a lot of mana, rather, because now he has 3 1/1s. They all make green. He has a Company in his hand. Majors knows about it. And we saw how Company ran away with game number 2.
Yeah. Untapping with mana for Collected Company, a good amount of mana for any potential Court of Calling.
So Lonergan, Majors swings. Lonergan takes 3. Majors then says, well, okay, if you're not blocking, I'm going to path your guy. Certainly not letting you untap with the Archdruid. Take 4. I'll add instant.
Yep. Majors here with the backup Tarmogoyf.
If he tried to path on upkeep, there's danger here that Majors would just maybe overrun in response.
Yeah, Lonergan could tap. Well, he'd have to tap 3 elves to get that mana, so he'd only be punching for 4. It's really only +1, and it means he's not really doing much else.
Yeah, yeah, it would be plus, right, he would get to pump 1 Druid.
Right.
Regardless, a second Goyf, they are both 4/5s. We go back over to Lonergan. He now draws the last Heritage Druid. So whenever Majors decides to draw that Maelstrom Pulse, it looks like it'll be pretty good.
If it were something that he could decide, I imagine he would have decided to do it last turn.
A pass of the turn to Majors. Both players know that Collected Company is waiting in the wings for Lonergan.
And for Majors, there's nothing you can do about that. He just has to try to close the game as quickly as possible with these Tarmogoyfs.
He'll fetch down to 13. Does have that Gideon in his hand, double white in play. But he has to worry about Collected Company untap and swing for lethal.
Yeah, and given that he's casting Gideon on this turn, I imagine now we can just make some allies, try to keep up on the board that way. Gideon is the one card in his deck that really lets him do this.
Well, without a real sweeper, so I'm curious if Majors attacks or defends. He's going to pass, so he looks like he's on a defensive game plan. This means he believes that he can win this slugfest, as it were.
He's hoping for no Azuris, but I got some bad news for you, Mike.
Azuri is one of the top cards in the Collected Company, and it will be joined by Elvish Visionary.
And Lonergan has his one Nykthos on the battlefield.
Uh-oh. This Majors may just be dead.
The Tarmogoyfs are large, but they're not overrun large.
There's a thing in math. We talk about linear growth versus exponential growth. One thing you should know is if you go far enough out, it's not close. And we're seeing that on display right now.
Yes. Major's role in this matchup is to try to interact a whole lot. Stop Lonergan from getting his engines going. If these are just 2 green creature decks, which is how these draws have shaped up, Lonergan's a much better green creature deck.
There are currently 6 green mana symbols on the board for Lonergan. He's going to swing the whole team. There is 1 activation already there for the Azuri. 5 creatures. This is all at Michael. This is actually, wait, this might, no. So 2 will go unblocked. So Michael is for sure taking 8 when Liam overruns.
Now, Lonergan has an Elvish Archdruid in his hand. He had a safer way to play this turn. He's just getting aggressive, and I think he's getting a little bit punished depending on how this turn progresses. He can start with Pendelhaven to +1 of his guys, go for the overrun. Though the Azuri, he has managed to regenerate a couple of the elves here.
He can put there's something which you don't know though, which is Lonergan, I believe, has a path to exile. If he does, he can path away a blocker, he can overrun his creatures, and Majors dies.
Yeah, sure. Path here, yeah, that's lethal.
I like what you're saying.
Okay, that information changes everything that I just said. Apologies to Liam Lonergan. Also, a little preemptive congratulations.
Yeah, it's because Liam Lonergan, if he has a path to exile, he is on to the finals. He'll pump his team, so it'll be 4 off the Heritage Druid, 4 off the Visionary, and if he paths a creature that's in front of his 2/2, the Azuri, then all 5 trample from Azuri will get through. 5, 4, and 4 is 13.
Your math checks out.
Now he's just got to show the path to exile.
Michael Majors, no copy of Slaughter Pact in his 75. Nothing at 0 mana he can do about this. Deck lists are face up. Lonergan knows it.
Like I said, Michael cannot play around path, so he's going to play as though it's not there. His Tarmogoyf's at 4/5. You see he's putting them in front of 1/1s. He's hoping to kill creatures through that Azuri ability, or at least one of them. Pendelhaven messes this up. And we're so easy. We'll see where Lonergan's at. Now, even without the path, yeah, he's got a great turn. Pendelhaven makes the Elvish Visionary a 2/3. This is going to activate Nykthos. That is for 6 green. He'll regenerate the other Heritage Druid, overrun the team. So 8 damage off the 2 unblocked Heritage Druids. It's going to be 3 damage of trample from the Azuri. That's going to be 11 damage, but the net result is Majors loses 2 creatures, Lonergan loses 0.
And his crackback is not even close to lethal here.
Yeah, so question, no path in Liam's hand, but this is a great turn nonetheless. Yeah, Azuri not actually dead.
He has tapped out of green mana, though. Damnation right now is what Majors needs.
It's not bad. It's Maelstrom Pulse. Were Majors able to put that into play, say, a couple turns ago, it would have been a game changer.
Right. Now, he can choose to get 3 Nettle Sentinels or the Azuri. The Azuri just generates so much damage. I don't think you can leave that on the table.
Well, between 4 1/1s and a Pendelhaven, I think Majors has to, as right? Liam can swing everything, just pump a guy.
This might be a no-win scenario. I guess you take him off activating the Azuri, at least in the short term, if you take care of the Heritage Druids.
Majors may be dead on board, and then the question is, what can he do from here? He'll Inquisition Lonergan. Gets his choice. Archdruid, the 4th Heritage Druid, and an Elvish Mystic. This part's easy.
Yes. How about we take the Lord?
If you're at 2 and your opponent has 4 1/1s, I don't think you can give him an Elvish Archdruid.
He still is in trouble against more 1/1s. He needs to top deck from here.
Yeah, 3. There's his last card, Maelstrom Pulse. He hits away the Heritage Druids. Gideon makes a blocker. Majors survives to the next turn. Or does he? Untapped land here from Lonergan. That looks to be his 3rd green source. Plays it. 3/3 tramples the team, swings. Tarmogoyf and Token tramples over for 2, and now the streak is 10-0 in his first big tournament. Liam Lonergan is on to the finals. He defeats the Platinum Pro Michael Majors 3-1.
Cut through Tom Ross in the top 8. Michael Majors in the semifinals, on to the finals where JD and Clomperens awaits him with Jund.
And at this